This is what we do best.
Let me tell you something, guys. This group has got passion.
Catwalk, tonight at 10 on YTV.
Did you grow up in Canada? Were you alive in the 90s? Did you love YTV? Yeah, you did.
Okay, so I got a question right here. Did you like the music Catwalk made?
No.
Okay.
I didn't like the music that Catwalk made all the time. But there was to be fair, the first 5 or 6 episodes, there's a weird thing that's happening because the band is not supposed to be good at that point. They are a young band. They don't know what their sound is. It's on purpose that it was supposed to sound basic and not complex and not as groovy.
Hello? Yeah, is this Johnny Camden of the band Catnip?
Yeah, Catwalk.
Yeah, whatever. Look, I listened to your tape. Your band ain't quite there yet. Get any new stuff, give me a call.
Okay, that's cool. Thanks. Bye.
So that was true. But the problem is you're trying to launch a show about a band that plays music and the music kind of sucks. And that's hard. How do you get the audience to believe that this is even worth watching? And also, you're just figuring out what the hell the show is. Like, you're figuring out how do these characters relate to each other. I remember at the beginning, Johnny and Daisy were like the hookup. Like, there was a makeout scene with us, and then they just said, that's never happening again. That just looked way too awkward.
Does anyone have a reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony?
So, we didn't know what it was supposed to be. And then they changed from Paul Hoffert, who was a TV composer, and he actually happens to be like the head of the Composer Society in Canada and an excellent guy. But he was doing like hip hop funk stuff as a composer with a very heavy workload. Then they decided to kind of take a dedicated group of people, which is Orrin Isaacs and that crew, who later on went on to be like the guys on that Mike, what was that guy's show, that talk show in Canada, Mike, he had a stubbly thing and hockey dude. Anyways, they were the house band.
Okay.
They were epic. Like Orrin Isaacs and company were an actual epic funk band who produced like major tracks for major artists, and they became the Catwalk band. And you start to feel like this huge shift. Mary's bass starts like cracking, and like my guitar solos become better, and the whole groove is a fuller, more baked in sound. So then it was good. I mean, it wasn't my scene, that kind of like Boys to Men or like Belle Biv DeVoe thing. But I gotta say, Johnny playing air guitar on Catwalk made me a better guitar player by 10-fold increase, because I'm sitting there strumming out these actual like funk rhythms day after day, hour after hour, just emulating these incredible players. And I started Catwalk as kind of like a shoddy, folky guitar player, and I came out of there as like a serious rhythm player. So yeah, there was some super like heavy chops that they had in there. And then the theme song for Catwalk is actually produced by Mario Marengo and David Buchanan, who are two guys that I brought to the show because they were the guys that produced my Blue Dog Picked records. So I actually wanted to say that that guitar in the theme song is Blue Dog Pick's guitar player Danny Kovacevic, who was to this day the best guitar player I have ever known. And I've had monsters of guitar play on my records, and he was the best. He died when he was 28. And I just wanted to say, like, he's not credited in the Catwalk thing or whatever, but his guitar parts are on that. That's him on that theme song. And that was my producer guys from Blue Dog Pick that wrote that song.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry about your friend.
Oh yeah, me too. He was amazing. I wrote a song about him called "The Big End," which is like my tribute to him. But we've never really addressed that publicly. And he's amazing, so it's worth mentioning. And I want everybody to know that he was an amazing guitar player.
1, 2, 3, here we go into that big end peacefully, and I hope gently, my friend.
Some people are asking, do you have a favorite episode after all this time? I mean, I know it's a
I
long
like that
time
question.
ago.
No, it's okay. There's definitely some episodes I really liked. Toxic Love was a pretty great episode. That was when Johnny meets this grifter, this punk rock girl who comes in, and she's desperate to find a home and a family. And she thinks that it's Catwalk, and she kind of grabs Johnny and pulls on the part of him that really wants to just be wild and try something different and to push, kind of move the needle. And he kind of loses perspective of what Catwalk is and tries to turn it into something that it's not, which is like an industrial hardcore band. And we ended up doing this like whole Trent Reznor thing. It was like super caricaturized, called Toxic Love.
Toxic love, you poisoned my mind and stole my innocence, so unkind. Toxic love, had it all planned, your lies and false pretense. Where does that leave me, baby? I got nothing but toxic love for you.
And there was this giant, the props department made this giant foam green head that's like spewing like toxic vomit. And that actually became one of Blue Dog Pict's like onstage deities called Boognish, which is a name we stole from Ween. So that was really fun. And, Johnny and Nikki DeBoer was her real name, but I don't remember what her character name was. Anyway, they get totally wasted on tequila and like have this like love scene, which is, again, very weird for Johnny to have a love scene. It just felt strange for Johnny. I was like, I don't know where it sits like for him. And then he's hungover, and I loved how Paul, as Jesse, would always ride Johnny's ass on anything that happened. Like we had this amazing rivalry where we would try to slip in a thing in every scene where we'd call each other Big Guy. Hey, Big Guy. and whoever got it first won, So it was, man, he killed me.
It looks like Johnny had a meeting of the minds last night. Huh, Big Guy?
So, of course, like when I'm hungover the next day, he's like, hey, big guy, you had a big night last night. It's just like, I want to kill you. And then the other episode I thought was amazing was when it was a bottle episode, which is the name for an episode where, there's either a holiday coming up in the real world and you don't have the same amount of production time or whatever. So they create these episodes where they do a lot of flashbacks to previous episodes.
Yeah.
But the irony of the bottle episode, which was about us being frozen in, there was like a massive snowstorm, kind of like the one that you guys have been having in Canada, Toronto, and Montreal. And Catwalk can't escape the warehouse. So everybody's stuck in the warehouse, and they're going to drive each other completely up the wall. Like there's snow plows stuck in the streets and whatever. But in the end, like they ended up really not doing any flashbacks, and it just became like an incredible 1-hour episode of like, characters in search of a play, just sitting there and just being characters at each other. And oh my God, that was another moment where me and Joel, Billy Kay, cracked each other up so hard we could not recover. Like it was just like we're just quitting this scene and leaving. And it was the moment where everybody's gone out and they're all pissed off at each other and they've just said like the worst things and they've all slammed the door, each one of them. And then all of a sudden they have to all come back because there's nowhere to go. And so they come back in And he and I are just like glowering at each other. And he's like, so you're not leaving? He's like, we're not leaving. Everything's stuck. We're staying here for the night. I'm like, you're staying here for the night? He goes, yeah, we're trapped. And I'm like, trapped? He's like, trapped. And we just kept going. So then every time we would do a new take, we wouldn't even get to it. I was like, and we just bust out laughing. They thought that we were unprofessional idiots and that we should all be sent home.
Thank God there's something warm around here.
When Catwalk was being too deliberate and trying to not be themselves, they sucked. And when they would flow and they would just let themselves be themselves and let everybody else around them play to their own strengths, and they hit this flow, and you do get chills watching that show. Like, as much as I loathed a bajillion things about that show and cringed about them, I still watch certain moments and get chills. And that's awesome. Like, that's super hard to get from things these days.
Can you think of a moment when you got said chills so I could actually add that in editing when you talk about them?
Yeah, there's a moment in that Frozen episode where they've all been shut out and they've all hated each other, and Billy Kay goes out into the hallway and he's like, I'm done with you. And he basically just eviscerates each person one at a time. He's like, you suck because of this and you suck because of that.
Time's up. Maybe it's because you spent more time playing with Jesse than playing your bass. But you know what they say, practice makes perfect, right?
Billy.
Hey, I'm not done.
It's like Wizard of Oz in reverse. Like, you do not have a heart and you do not have a soul. And
Yeah, well, you're one hell of a manager. Instead of keeping us together, you break us apart.
Don't have any illusions. You did that. Y'all did that.
And then the band is like, well, the only thing we have is each other.
We can't let what happened last night tear us apart. You mean that? Yeah.
And he's like, and I honestly couldn't have done this because without your stupid beats, and you couldn't have done this without me. And they start playing, and it's like this awesome moment. And Billy turns around and he looks back at the room, and he's like, yes. And I guess the premise is like, oh, he totally meant to do that. But at the same time, like, as he comes back in and they're all flowing and they're all playing and they warming up this frozen, like this frozen space, you see this moment in him, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful moment. Like, that we will endure through all of our differences, all of our hatred, all of the things that divide us. When we play music together, like, everybody comes and benefits from that. The weirdest thing about Johnny for me is I never thought of Johnny as a central character. I always thought of him kind of as like this recurring role, and like Catwalk was like the show, and Johnny was kind of just like this weird outside thing that happened every once in a while. I didn't know that anybody paid attention to Johnny. I thought he wasn't that important. I was literally, by trying to not be invested in Johnny, was being the ultimate Johnny. Like, I just didn't want to be there. I didn't want to play nice. I wanted to be in my own world, and I was in my own world. I would draw these little Trastero symbols. Like, every time you see him writing in a journal, I would do these little secret codes for my friends to catch on and remind them that I wasn't really in this TV show and I was still with them, and I was trying to be Mr. Subversive. But it's interesting because that was the character, and I never felt like this thing of like, I am the guy that's going to work to play the leader of this band. I never, ever felt that moment. I wish I could have, but I didn't. It was incidental to my experience. There's another episode of Catwalk I really like. I think it's like episode 4. Sierra is really trying to get a job, and they did these bizarre, like super bizarre, like LSD trippy, Arsenio Hall parody things where like Johnny's on the talk show and then Sierra's on the talk show and she's dressed like a lobster and they're all laughing at her. And then my dad is like dressed like Arsenio Hall, and he's like freaking me out. That episode is really interesting. There's also this beautiful dynamic between Johnny and his father, played by Victor Ertmanis, who is an extraordinary actor. And those relationship scenes between Johnny and his dad were super, super meaningful to me, for a lot of reasons, a lot of real life reasons. My dad was not anything like that guy, but there was always this challenge between my father, who's a lawyer, and me in real life, who was like singing in a punk rock cabaret band and trying to, like, I'm the eldest, and it was always like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what are you doing? And that was directly reflected in that relationship between Johnny and Victor and his dad. And it's like that question of like, Johnny, you should be down here at the docks. You should be helping me out. It's been hard for me. And then that comes full circle in the episode where Johnny's mom comes home. And they're like, you have a mom? It's like, well, I guess I do. And she's like this total like woodsy, like Luna energy, and that was a real relationship in my real life. I had this person who sort of became like my surrogate witchy mother and taught me like that everything that was weird about me that if people would make fun of or would question was actually the best part. And I leaned into it so hard. I named my band after her, one of her monikers. And so this was an incredible thing on the show where the father was like a super exaggerated version of my real life relationship with my father. And the mother was like my mom, who was doing experimental abstract theater and was like into like the mystic arts, and them watching those two try to reconcile. And Johnny is like the fallout in the middle, and he just wants to eat a bowl of fucking ramen with the two of them and let's not fight for 5 minutes. And it never comes together. But then you find out that the father was like, dude, even though like you always hated me and you resented me, I'm the one that stuck it out for you while your mother was traveling the entire world.
Well, that was some stunt you pulled last night.
It wasn't a stunt. I mean, some families like to call it dinner.
You should have told me what was going on.
You couldn't even get along with her for half an hour.
What do you want from me, huh?
How about letting the past go?
What, you mean just forget it even happened?
No wonder she left you, man. I mean, what are you so scared of?
I ought to ask you the same question.
Oh, well, you want to know? Did you really want to know?
I asked you, didn't I?
I'm scared of you. I mean, I'm scared of becoming like you.
What does that mean?
It means that you woke up this morning and you put your shoes on and you came down to your little boat and you went to work. Just like you did yesterday and the day before that, and you'll probably do for the rest of your life.
Well, if it's what I do, why do you worry about it?
Because I don't want to end up on some stinking boat with no escape.
Well, that's why you play your music.
You don't believe in either.
You think when I was your age, this is how I wanted to end up, huh? You think I didn't want what your mom wanted? Well, I'll tell you something. It didn't turn out so bad, I mean, it may be a stinking little boat, but it's my boat. And every day I got to go out on the water. That's where I escape. That's where I can get away. But unlike your mom, I come back. Every day I came back because of you. Because you needed to go to school. Because you needed clothes on your back. That's why I got this stinking little boat. Your mom gave you a lot of things, Johnny, but God damn it. Don't make it seem like I didn't give you nothing, okay?
And that gives me chills to talk about, to think about that kind of a reversal, and that the show could teach you that, our presumptions about people are not going to be the same for the rest of our lives. And if Johnny was like caught up in a bunch of relationships with people, lovers, stuff, then it wouldn't play the same way. But all he cared about was that stupid guitar to the point of driving people insane.
You don't want to know.
Yes, we do.
All right, Jesse and I went to a psychic.
You've got to be kidding.
Oh, no, I'm dead serious. Watson is within 6 blocks of here.
Your brain is not within 6 blocks of here.
And it's the fact that he's just so deliberate on that one path, because he can't channel it anywhere but that. It has to be the goal. He's not scattered. He's not trying to accomplish 10, 15, 20 things. It's like, I just want to play my guitar. Just shut up. and let me play my guitar. And life stops you over and over and over again. And you see that. That's every episode. Every episode is like, can Johnny just play the fucking guitar? And something's like, nope, not yet.
That's a great way of looking at it. I think the first instrument I ever learned how to play was drums, and I'm pretty sure it's because Paul's character, like, I'm huge Green Day fan. Trey Cool's, my boy. But I've never at that point in my life never saw a guy had to learn how to play drums on a show, and kind of this journey of here's him attempting to play in an apartment, which I did. And people banging on the wall, which they did. And the idea that it went somewhere, and that awkward boom, like trying to get it right, unrealistically a little bit, considering Catwalk got signed in about 6 months from him touching a drum set for the first time. But still, it was just enough for my 11, 12-year-old brain to say, I think I want to do that.
I love that story so much, what you just said to me. Paul, in real life, is one of the best metal singers I've ever heard. He's like Chris Cornell good.
Out. Really?
Yeah, no, he is. Yeah, he really is. Like, I was like, nah, that can't be true. And he is. And he... when we were 14 and on that, we were that pilot thing called Cutting Loose, we were like, what kind of sound should we have? I was like, kind of like U2 Rattle and Hum, or like Tones on Tail, or I don't know, something. And he said, I think that my character should be wearing like red leopard print, leather pants. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, hair metal sucks, dude. And he was fully invested at 14 in that. And only years later did I find out, when he had this like super like just normal like business haircut, that he had pipes, like Cornell pipes.
Really?
Yeah, for real. The show doesn't age well. I mean, like I said, it didn't age well when it was on the air, for the reasons we already explained. But I think what's really, really beautiful about Catwalk is that you did have all of these colors and all of these sounds and all of these backgrounds working harmoniously on a project as if that was no thing. Like, it was just never even brought up as a subject, except for when it was, very specifically, like, Atlas being harassed by the cops. But it was more of a circumstantial thing, really, than it was about the color of his skin. And it's nice to see a bunch of people, like, what that even looks like when that happens, when that's possible, especially in the contemporary climate.
Well, the character of Mary, that was one of the first mixed-race parents on television, like definitely within some of the first ones. But it was done so effortlessly. There wasn't like this big episode where everybody had to rally behind them because they were being harassed by the neighborhood. It was just like, oh yeah, they're her parents.
Part of how Catwalk was able to solve that, although it was never spoken or enunciated, was because it was in its own universe. Like, you didn't have to deal with, like, what are the politics of Baltimore, or what are the politics of Chicago or of Toronto or Montreal. Like, would that be weird there? It didn't matter, because it wasn't anywhere. It was everywhere. And it was nowhere at all. On the other hand, episode 15 was about Nick, who was Daisy's old boyfriend, who comes to town and he has AIDS. And, everybody's got different reactions to it. There's the people who are like, well, let's support Nick. What does Nick need? Can Nick stay with us? And there's people like, I don't want Nick in my house, and then they start to protest a local clinic, and they all get arrested and they all go to jail. And they're like, I'm going to go to jail for this. Like, there's no way you're stopping me. So it was interesting when Catwalk really dealt with some like real hot button issues, because it wasn't that kind of a show that really was designed to handle the political topics of the day, because it happened in this parallel universe. So when it did, it was particularly acute, I found. You didn't ask me one thing. You didn't ask me about Johnny's hair.
Well, we were talking about moments in time and how that haircut belongs to there. But you know what? Let's hear about Johnny's hair. Did you have that hair going in, or did they do that to you?
Let's talk about Johnny's hair, because Johnny's hair was pretty iconic, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And, people really weren't doing that like weird burr cut, let alone with like inward facing French braids. So this is why Johnny's hair looked the way that Johnny's hair did. My real life band, I had really long hair. It came down past my shoulders, and it was like this crazy curly locks, and I would have things tied into it, whatever. And so I had to basically have my real life band be undercover. We would play shows, but we would never say that I was the lead singer. We would do press releases, and I would never say that I was in the band. We would do group photos, and I would have to wear weird makeup and clown makeup and whatever, because I couldn't be recognizable.
Beautiful, can't hate yet, untainted.
So when I would go to work, what I would do is I would shave everything as high up as I could, and instead of having my hair down like I did in Blue Dog Picked, it was all pulled back into this ponytail. But the hairdresser designer on the show started to have a lot of fun with me, because I was always bored of everything. And I was like, let's do something new. And my friend also owned a sunglass company called Active Surplus, or Active Eyewear. So he would give me boxes and boxes of crazy sunglasses. And I was trying to do this thing like Jodie Foster, where every scene I would wear a different pair of sunglasses. And if you watch the show, I almost always have a different pair of sunglasses in every scene. And Katerina, who did the hair, would do the same thing, where she would try a challenge of like, what's a new way that we can braid Johnny's hair today? So Johnny could never do his own braids the way, I mean, she would take hours, like just sitting in the trailer while they were shooting other stuff, just like figuring out new crazy patterns to make my braids go. And then we started kind of like tying in blue hair and pink hair and green hair. So as the show progresses, his hairstyles become way sci-fi. Like, that is not just a burr cut, an undercut with like a ponytail. There is like serious labor involved in designing. It's like the equivalent of designing spaceships going on Johnny's head, plus these like rotating sunglasses. So I just wanted to make sure that that was understood about his crazy look.
Okay. Well, since we're speaking of that, every time you look at the Catwalk beginning theme song, you see them in this giant loft, and I'm like, what the fuck? Is that like $7,000 a month? Like, that loft was huge. Was that a set, or was that an actual loft that you guys were shooting in?
That was an actual warehouse. It's the same warehouse where I filmed War of the Worlds when I was 15.
You know this area is restricted. What's this child doing here?
I'm not a child.
Disobedience is disruptive to the operations of this base.
I must know more than I can learn in the simulation. It's not enough. I know the answers even before the questions are asked.
It's the same warehouse where I filmed Friday the 13th, the series.
He's just a grown-up. He doesn't matter. No, Ricky! I thought we were friends. Friends to the end. Well, friends help each other.
They don't kill people.
It was a warehouse, man. It was toxic. It had probably all sorts of asbestos and fiberglass all over the place. I mean, they cleaned it up as best they could, but that was a real warehouse. And it was over at Lansdowne and DuPont. And I spent 10 months in there. Like, that bed was the bed where I would fall asleep, and that hammock was there, and we would lay in it, and, you know, craft service was just off to the side, and we spent days and days and weeks and months in there. It was real. There was not a set. They had this beautiful mural of a Pegasus up on the wall that somebody did. Jesse's bedroom was like the random little chain link area with like a futon. Yeah, I don't even know exactly where Jesse lived. Johnny had like this super like elite thing up in the back. Like, he had like up on the riser, he had this bed, but I don't even know where the bathroom was. Was there a bathroom in there? Oh, I guess the bathroom would be out in the hall of this industrial building, probably with a key somewhere. And actually, shortly after that, I ended up living in real life over at Carlaw and Queen, which is right beside the Degrassi offices, in a warehouse. and it had cockroaches. It had like, dust and industrial stuff, and it was not zoned for habitation at all. And that's where I lived. Just like Johnny, I had this little section that was like sectioned off with like pipes and coat hangers, and I was like on the little internet, like before there was an internet, and living this like Blade Runner lifestyle. So yeah, it wasn't a set.
And this has been astounding. And I don't think I've learned more about a show that I was asking questions about more than today. So thanks so much for sharing your stories, your insight, your knowledge, and about, your life. And I'm speaking from me and your fans, we'd like to say thanks for all your hard work on a show that apparently you didn't really want to be in.
It's my pleasure to have brought whatever it was that I could bring to a show that really meant something to you guys and had an impact on you. And I do respect and appreciate that. That's a wonderful thing when that comes together.
Check out more episodes of You, Me, and YTV on Facebook and YouTube. Sweet one-of-a-kind interviews with PJ Fresh Bill, PJ Paul, Tarzan Dan, the cast of Student Bodies, the voice acting cast of Sailor Moon, and much, much more. Exclusively on You, Me, and YTV. Season 2.